Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the shop. This week's video, we're building this cool oak cabinet with some LED lighting. Here we go. Alright, so this project starts out the way most projects start out. Breaking down and milling lumber. And what exactly are we making, you ask? And what are these cabinets for? Well, it's almost Christmas, and my sons, I have twin boys that are 13, and they are not really into toys anymore. So it's kind of sad. But they are into sneakers, and they like hats and stuff like that. So my wife showed me a picture of a cool display cabinet that they showed her with LED lights inside and sneakers in it and like looking all cool to display your cool sneakers. So I told her, don't buy that thing. I will make one. So that's what this is. Now, when I went to the lumber yard, I kind of had a plan as far as material. I was going to do flat sawn white oak and do a really, really dark, almost black stain on these. And then when I got there, my friend at the lumberyard showed me this pile of rustic quarter sawn white oak, which I love me some quarter sawn white oak. And so, yeah, I bought that, and it was pretty cheap too, because nobody's really buying rustic quarter sawn white oak, except me, I guess. So I bought a bunch of it, and there's obviously some big knots and things that we need to fill, and we'll do that. So the case on this cabinet is actually going to be made of hardwood. The only plywood in this project will be the back of the cabinet. So I mill up these two boards, and we're going to glue them together. Biscuits, not totally necessary. I just like to add them. It makes aligning things a little easier. But I did flatten these things and get them as flat and straight as I could. And then we'll glue these up. Now, this is only going to be enough material to do the sides and the top. So it's going to miter around and have continuous grain. And then I glue up another one for the bottom piece, but I couldn't get long enough material to have it go all the way around. But the bottom doesn't matter because you're not going to see the outside and be able to tell if it's grain matched or not. But the sides and the top will be. So here we go with these giant knots, cleaning them out. There were some large voids and some cracks that went all the way through, so I taped the other side. Hit whatever little cracks I could with Starbond CA glue, the black one, and then I mix up their 5-minute epoxy and add some black dye in there to fill the bigger voids. And this 5-minute epoxy that they have is really nice. It dries obviously very quick. It's sandable in like 15-20 minutes. But the working time is short, so you got to really be quick because this stuff starts to goop up in 5 minutes. Weird that they would name it 5-minute epoxy. And these are the boards for the bottom of the cabinet. See, I still use regular biscuits. I don't always use the Tensos or Clam X. I use my Classic X Lamello biscuit joiner. And look at that nice bead of glue. So yeah, same thing, filling any cracks and voids with CA glue that where I can, any ones that are small enough. And like I said, larger ones get filled with that 5-minute epoxy. So once I let that set up, sent that board through the drum sander, flatten everything out. See, I'm wearing a mask. I am working on my dust collection system. That's going to be a video coming your way hopefully pretty soon with a big upgrade. But I'm trying to be healthier and breathe not all this fine dust. So I bought like 80 something of those cheap disposable masks. and I've been trying to wear them, especially when I'm using that drum sander, because yeah, a lot of fine dust gets in the air. So here I'm breaking this thing down. I'm not mitering them yet, but I did mark and label everything carefully so that I don't get confused with my parts. And so I do cut these to size, just don't have a miter on them yet. We will miter them later. First, I need to do a few things to my side panels before I put the miters and we glue this thing up. So here I'm just laying everything out, making sure I've got my pieces the right way. Label everything on the back side. And here are my two side pieces, which again, label everything, especially when you're grain matching stuff. Try and label things clearly so you don't get confused. So first I take my side panels over to the line boring machine and punch some holes in them. So we get that knocked out. I have not changed those bits in there in like 5 years since I bought that machine. I probably need some new drill bits for those, or for that machine. So here I am cutting a rabbet on the back of all my pieces, and this is going to accept the 3/4 inch back of the cabinet. I have a piece of flat sawn white oak 3/4, so that's what we're using. Yeah, it would be nice to have a piece of quarter sawn white oak ply, but I didn't really feel like buying one. And I had a sheet of 3/4 flat sawn, so it'll be fine. It's all white oak. Luckily, this is for my house. If it was for a client, yes, I would buy a sheet of quarter sawn, but it's not. It's for my boys, and they're not going to even know. And then what I'm doing here is cutting a dado in the center of my side panels on the inside. This is going to be for my LED lighting. And then I go over to the slider and I set that stop. So I'm basically cutting to 0. I took a little bit of material off, but and yeah, cutting my miter, and so my grain match will be pretty good. You'll see it at the end. And cutting miters like this, the slider is just like perfect for this. So back to the LED lighting. Yeah, I was kind of in a pinch, didn't have time to kind of wait for things to come in the mail. Everything on Amazon seemed to be like coming after Christmas at this point, so I needed some LED lighting. So I went to Lowe's and I got this rope lighting, and I was stoked on it. I'm like, oh, this will be really good. My original plan was to use like an aluminum C channel and then use the sticky LED strip inside the C channel, and it has a diffuser over it. But I got this rope light, and let's just say it works and it looks good, but I wish I went with my C channel idea from the beginning. But I didn't, because the rope light just didn't bend the way I wanted it to, because I was going to wrap it around, have it go up my sides and over the top, inside the top of the cabinet as well, but I couldn't really do that. So this hole I'm drilling here is for that LED light to go into the bottom of the cabinet, to go underneath. So it'll go down that dado and then through that hole. And then the toe kick area of the cabinet will be lit up. Another thing I need is a drill press. That would have been perfect for a drill press. I don't have a drill press. I used to have one, and then when I moved shops, I sold it to somebody because I literally never used it. But a lot lately, me and Rowdy have been joking, man, it'd be nice to have a drill press. So I think that's in the future as well, a new drill press. Then I sanded all the inside edges, or the inside of my box parts, and started gluing them up. I'm using the Lamello Tensos. You see I put the green tape on the inside edge just to help a glue squeeze out, so it doesn't make such a mess inside the cabinet. And then bam, end of the first day, got this whole thing glued up. And then I used my plywood pieces to hold everything nice and square. Obviously, I'm not going to pocket screw these in, so I just clamp them up. I want to put holes on the inside of my box. Then the next morning we could take it apart. And it was looking good. Glue out turned out really nice. Everything was good and square. And then I could measure for some doors. And so the doors are going to have the glass panels. So we go back over to the pile and dig through for some more material. And I'm making my doors a little bit different than I normally would. I only have 2 of them, so I'm going to make these glass doors pretty much all on the table saw and use a domino in the joint. And again, here I want my stiles in the middle are going to be cut out of the same board, so they're grain matched. So cutting your parts and labeling everything carefully so you don't get confused later and everything works out the way you want it to. I also cut all my door parts out of the same board so everything looks the same, and yeah, it's just kind of consistent. Break down all my parts, and then I need to cut a rabbet on all of my pieces, my stiles and my rails. And this will accept the glass panel in the back. And again, being careful, especially on my stiles that are in the middle, to rabbet the right edge of the door so that when I put the doors together, they do line up. So here we go. Just finished off that rabbet. And then I need to rabbet my rails on the face to go into the rabbet on the stiles. You'll see here in a second. But I didn't put a dado stack in. It could have put a dado stack in. I only had 4 rails to do, so I just made a bunch of passes. And I got that fit dialed in nice. That's what I'm talking about. It's a nice joint right there. And we are going to add dominoes to that joint because obviously you need more than that. Just laying everything out, seeing how it looks. And those stiles in the center really look cool. The grain is really crazy there. It is kind of a weak point right here. It is, obviously, that's not going to be the strongest grain going across like that. But, again, it's for my boys. And it's not the hinge side. It's the middle. And, yeah, if it ever fails, I'll just make new doors. But I don't think it'll fail. It wasn't cracked or anything. If these were for a client, I probably wouldn't have used those boards for the middle pieces. But, again, when you're making stuff for yourself, you can experiment. So that's what I'm kind of doing. It'll be worth it because the grain on those center stiles look really, really cool. So we get everything dominoed and clamped up. Rowdy was actually working on finishing some drawer boxes for Jason. Jason had ordered some drawers, and we picked them up and just getting them sprayed for him. And then back to the wood pile to mill up some more material for the base of this thing. It's like a furniture base. And so if you guys remember, I don't know, a month or so ago, I made those white oak nightstands. Those are in my boys' room as well. And so I'm trying to make this cabinet similar to that. It's obviously not going to be the same color or anything. This will be like a standalone piece, but kind of the same style, same base, everything flush with the base, with the curved detail around it. And so that's kind of what I'm going with here. And so I did the same thing that I did on those cabinets, where if you haven't seen that video, you should go back and watch it. But I basically ripped that piece off and then cut those pieces and glued them back on so it all looks, it's still grain matched, and you'll never be able to tell that there's that little joint there. Then I bust out that sheet of 3/4 I was talking about and cut my back. So I'm centering the cathedrals or the flitches on this sheet of plywood just so it looks nice in the cabinet. and it doesn't look like it was just randomly cut. It's little things like this. You take a couple extra minutes to cut a piece and center it, and it just adds a little extra detail and looks nice. So you'll be able to kind of see it here. And cathedrals up. And so you can see how all those flitches in the sheet of plywood are centered on the cabinet, and it looks good. Then back to the wood pile to break down more material, and these are for the shelves. So same thing, get these milled up, biscuit them together, fill any voids and cracks and stuff like that, and set them off to the side. And all my parallel clamps were being used. Rowdy is working on some really cool projects as well. He's making these rolling island cart things with big, huge end grain cutting boards on top. So for his kids, he's making those. So they're pretty cool. I'll show you guys pictures of those on Instagram when they're all done. And then mixing up more of that epoxy. And that black dye is just some black epoxy dye. I just ordered it on Amazon. And this is the extent of epoxy work that I will do. I am not an epoxy table guy or anything like that. Just not really my thing. So that's the most epoxy you'll ever see me use, probably. Back to the furniture base. I got that piece out of clamps. I still needed to send these through the sander. And so, yeah, we bring it over and put it through the sander. I did label the top edge of all these parts. Again, labeling things is your friend. If you think you're going to remember the next day, you're not, and you're going to be confused. So label your parts. I've done that way too many times. Oh, I'll remember. I know how I cut it. Yeah, I don't remember. So, yeah, I rip everything down to the same width, so everything is the same height, and then start mitering my pieces to go around the cabinet. Now, they're labeled because, again, grain matching around the sides and the front. The back piece isn't grain matched, but it doesn't matter because it's the back piece and you're never really going to see it. So I just take my time, go around, miter these things. And then I still needed to put a rabbet on the top edge. So luckily, we've been a little bit slow here in the shop, and so I had a few days to get these knocked out. If this was last year at this time, there's no way I would have been able to build these. So it's kind of been nice this Christmas season not being overwhelmed with jobs. Come January, it's looking like we're going to be overwhelmed with jobs, but good jobs, and it's a good thing. So excited for 2025. It's definitely going to be fun. So now to attach these things, I'm marking there for lamello clips. I'll do tensos in the front, and then in the back I'm not able to, because I have the rabbet in the cabinet. There's a small tab there. I couldn't put the biscuits. So I glued everything with yellow glue on the miters, and then I added these little 45 blocks in the back with some CA glue just to hold everything nice and tight. And yeah, then the base was glued up. So here I lamello in the front. Just using the tensos. This thing will snap on after finish. I wanted to be able to take it off. I'm going to put the whole thing together, but I wanted to be able to take it off for finishing. Oh, yeah. That was good, Josh. All right. So here's that tab that I was talking about in the back. So the back gets screwed on from inside that rabbet, and then the back panel covers up those screws. and that back fits nice. Get this thing screwed in. I do like to fully assemble everything, hang my doors, make sure everything is perfect, and then we'll take it all back apart. So I get my doors cut down. Making sure I get my gaps and everything perfect. And I did even order full inset black hinges that Bloom makes. Bloom, whatever, makes black ones. So I ordered those with the black base plates. When I installed these, they weren't in yet. But yeah, just to change it up a little bit. They look pretty cool. So working on my gaps, I did end up trimming the doors down a little bit more, the height. And then you'll see here where the hinge cup is, when I put the hinge on, the hinge is like hanging over because I'm going to add a wooden glass door stop in the back that's going to hold the glass panel in, and it'll be flush with the back. And then that hinge won't look like it's hanging over, and it'll all make sense in the end when you see it. So we hang the doors. And then I need to put a stop. You can see my doors, obviously, they need a stop on them. So I grab a chunk of white oak and round the corners, bring it over to the bandsaw, and round those off. And I'm just making a little block that will get screwed inside to the top of the box, and that'll be my doorstop. Get that thing sanded up, and we're ready to put in there. So I clamp it, make sure it's nice and flush with my door. I also put a bumper on there so that it was set back, because I do want to put rubber bumpers on there and make sure it's in the right spot. Get those things adjusted, and it's looking good. Moving back over to my shelves, get these things ripped down to size, and then cross cut to size. Oh, hey. And then Jason stopped by, picked up those drawer boxes, and then back to work. Back to work, man. And so I put my shelf in, and I needed to mark it for that dado inside for where that LED light is, because it actually sticks out proud of the cabinet side. So I needed to notch the shelves. So I made a quick little jig. I just stood that piece up and cut a little dado or notch in the piece of plywood, screwed some pieces to it, and then I could clamp that to the top of my shelf and just route in that little notch. So I did it in 2 passes. I did not do these cuts in one pass, going through end grain and white oak like that in one pass would be a bit much. So I do about half of it, drop the cutter down, do the other half, and they're done. Boom. There we go. Fitting nice. Looking nice. Grab a hat off my shelf. That's a Matt Moore hat. Shout out Matt Moore. It's a little dusty. And then take my shoe off and see how it looks. Because that's what my boys are going to do. They're going to put their sneakers in there. And the shoe fits. Then it was time to take everything back apart and sand it. I did need to fill some voids and stuff that I missed with some CA glue. And then just go to town. Sanding, the fun part. Not really at all. And then I needed to cut my glass door stops, so I milled up some material, and this is going to hold my glass panel in. So I take my time going around, marking my pieces and mitering everything in. And this just looks nice too on the back of the door. So you can see I get it into the corner, mark it, cut it, and then set it in there. And then it's nice and flush. Now, hopefully it makes sense where the hinge sits. It kind of holds that glass door stop, and it's not hanging over the edge like it was before. And then bam, those are all done. Now we're not going to permanently attach them until we're done sanding. So back to the sander, or back to the bench to sand. And I'm not going to bore you with all that. And then we move on to finish. We're using Rubio. I originally wanted to do these really, really dark. And then I decided to go with this color. And I honestly can't think of the name off the top of my head. Something gray. Slate gray. Pretty sure that was it. And at first I wasn't really stoked on it. But it's grown on me. After looking at it for the last few days and having the light on in the cabinet, it looks pretty cool. So everything gets finished, and then it was the next day. I let everything sit overnight, and I could final assemble everything. So we get that base put back on, screwed down, and then I could run my lights. So that's the bottom, so I'm running the rope light into there. I probably didn't need to make that dado so tight. These things were kind of a pain in the butt to put in there. And I needed to run them this way because there was the wire coming off that goes to the remote was kind of short, so I couldn't have it coming out the bottom. Again, not super stoked on this rope light, but I'm committed to it at this point, and it is what it is. It still is going to look really cool. So yeah. We get the back on, and so those are the remotes for it, and they're obviously connected to the wire, and then there's another wire connects to those that plugs into the wall. So those remotes, I think, will just kind of get stickied to the top of the cabinet, and the boys can just push the button and turn the lights on when they want to. And then we could put the glass in. So you saw I went around, put a few dabs of that caulking, and that just makes it so the glass is not rattling around. And then I throw some 1-inch pin nails. I do not glue the stops in. The idea is that if the glass ever broke, it's just held in with some pin nails, and it would be easy enough to remove those stops and put a new piece of glass in. It also looks nice on the back side of the door, those nice mitered pieces going around. And then we're almost done. You could see what the light looks like around that shelf that we notched out. Get these doors put on. And I am pretty stoked with these cabinets. Definitely pretty cool. The idea, obviously someday the boys, maybe not. Maybe they'll be sneaker crazy forever. But if they ever get over being obsessed with sneakers, they can use this as a bookshelf or something like that. It'd just be a cool cabinet to have. And the lights all change colors, and you can make them be like strobe lights or whatever you want to do. There's the grain match, looking nice. There's those center stiles, the grain on those look really, really cool. There's the black hinges, and this thing is done. All right, so that's it for this one. I still have to get the hardware. I'll get some pulls for it, but this is going to go to my house for Christmas Day. Yeah, hopefully the boys like it. The Patreon link is down below. If you want to join the Patreon, we do weekly Zoom calls over there, and then all my other social media stuff, merch. Our website is down below as well. Yeah, if you got questions, leave them below. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.